Hi, everyone. Elise McVeigh with Mrs. McVeigh's Manners and Elise McVeigh's Life Camp. So excited you could join us today. So, oh gosh, I see a lot of great people coming in. So thank you so much for coming to this webinar on 10 ways to teach your children good manners and how to retain them. So I'm just so happy. Oh gosh, I keep on seeing all these people coming in. So glad that you're with us today. We are going to get you in and out in 30 minutes. So thank you. And I see some Dallas friends and then outside of Dallas. So I live in Dallas, Texas, where we have a lot of our classes, but we also have online classes too. So I'm very excited to have you with us. So I am going to share my screen and we will get started. All right, so how to teach your children good manners. So let me sort of tell you, if you don't know me, who I am. So I started Elise McVeigh's Life Camp Seminar in 2001, and I have a staff with me. We speak to young adults, parents, professionals about etiquette. 2003, a suggestion from a parent during a speech, I started Mrs. McVeigh's Manners, which is a children's manners school. So originally a journalist, I wrote a manners advice column for the Dallas Morning News for 10 years. Written a book for adults on teaching your children manners. And the Mrs. McVeigh's Manners curriculum now has 65 lessons. So each lesson has an original storybook, worksheet, activity sheet, short videos. So throughout this presentation, you'll see the Mrs. McVeigh's Manners cast of characters. So they're based on my family as well as a variety of diverse children. So here is my family. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to teach your children good manners, what I define as manners, and how to teach them so they think that learning manners is fun. And just know you don't have to do this alone. I'm going to give you some resources that's going to make your job a lot easier. For example, I'm not great at math. I had to find outside resources to help my children with their math classes once they got to a certain age. So if you're struggling with teaching your children's manners, just sort of think of me as a tutor. Just know that, help's on the way. So the 10 ways to teach your children good manners. So here they are. We're going to get our relatives on board. We're going to sound positive. We're going to make it fun, role playing, eat dinner as a family, try new foods, incorporate it into our daily life and practice, look for learning opportunities, repetition, and an outside influence such as a relative or a teacher. So why don't kids have good manners today? Well, it started with kids not being able to play outside without supervision and all the organized activities that we now have. So moms started working, in the 70s and 80s. The family dinner hour got lost. And if you don't have a family dinner hour, well, then you not only are missing out on teaching your children how to use a fork and knife, how to set the table, like conversation, but just life lessons. There were so many things that people would learn from that. So that's something that we're really challenged now. And as a result, we have the millennials and Generation Z. I have nothing against the millennials or Generation Z. I don't want you to think I do. My children are Generation Z, and probably a lot of you are millennials. So part of it is, it's just that we now have several generations of not getting together to, to learn good manners. So example, cell phones and interviews and meetings. I have a friend who told me that her son owns a graphics company. Years ago, when the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys came to Dallas, they had him print the tickets. And he was in a meeting and a young man said that he brought with him, took a phone call in the middle of the meeting. So he's like, Mom, should I fire him? Is this a reason to fire him? I mean, that's obviously not very good practices. So that's a problem. Another example is someone told me that they were hiring a young man, and sorry, not to pick on men, but hiring a young man, and he had his iPad in the interview. Well, a lot of the other interviewees were older and they didn't understand why he'd have an iPad. So he said, do you think this is bad? And I said, well, he was probably just taking notes. He said, well, that's what I thought, but they saw it as he was like on his device. So there's sort of this generation gap of what's acceptable, not acceptable. But in general, I'd say keep your electronic devices out of an interview. Then we also have problem with people eating and going to the table. So fast food, because we couldn't, because kids have all these activities now, and that started, when women started working and it was two people in the family working. It was just family dinner hours, I said, was getting lost. So we resort to fast food. Well, guess what? You don't use utensils with fast food. So that's a big problem as well. So I think I think manners is more than meeting and greeting and table manners and answering the phone politely. It's also character, life building skills, meaning handling, mean kids, strangers, having a neat appearance, being well organized even. So you might say, well, what does being organized have to do with manners? Let me give you an example. So I have a son who I love. Of course, you love all your kids, but he was not very organized. And he was always late meeting his little friend to walk to school every day. And it just really bothered me. I said, that is so rude that you're late. And you know what? We all have a friend who's late all the time. It's just how life is. But honestly, it's just not very good manners. Bad manners is not a baby crying because they're two. I mean, that's just developmental, or maybe in the crib or whatever. But in a baby who takes their utensils and throws it off their high chair, that's not bad manners. That's just them in that stage of life. You go to the pediatrician and he says, oh, are they going through your purse? Are they doing this? And you're like, yes, but why are you asking me that? Well, because they just want to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do for that age. So how can we be assured that our children have good manners? Well, we need to work on it constantly. Just as soon as your baby is born, you're cuddling them, you're reading them books, you're, doing shapes, maybe flashcards, depending on how ambitious you are. Manners is no exception. Always use kind words, use a kind tone. Always say, please, thank you. Even if it's a baby, he probably doesn't know, doesn't care. You're thinking, why should I do that? Well, because they will eventually talk, and you want to make sure that those nice words come out of their mouth. So when your children are young, especially, I have another son, a different one, because I have three, as you saw in the picture. He was nicest kid now, but nicest person, but just had a very bad tone of voice. And he would forget to say please when he wanted something. So I finally said, look, I am not going to respond to you. I'm not going to answer you if you continue to not say please and if you have a bad tone of voice. And so I just started ignoring him. Well, he didn't like that. So he got with the program and he started saying please and thank you and had a better tone. And we know that when kids get older, they do get a bad tone. All right, so how can you teach your child to have good manners? So I'll be honest with you. When I first wrote this speech, my children were young, and a lot of it, I just was sort of hoping to God that I was giving the right advice. But my children are now 19, 21, and 23, and they're all very, very nice young adults. So one's even employed. It's very exciting. You will get there too. So they're very polite and conversational. So that's good. So now that I've been teaching manners for years, I mean, I've had thousands at this point of kids go through my classes after 20 years of teaching. I've tested what I am telling you. So I'm not just making it up. I really have now tested it. So it's really effective, and be reassured that I can help your children as I've helped others. So don't panic. All right, so here we go. Number one, we are going to get our relatives on board. That means your significant other, the parent, step parent, whoever helps this child, grandparents. I don't mean to pick on husbands, but I have a lot of kids who come to class and they'll say, oh yeah, my dad passes gas. And they don't say it that way, but he burps. They don't care if I talk back to them. So those are things that you do not want your child to say about you. So here is some two kids jumping on the couch, because when my children were little, they would go to my in-laws' house, love them, wonderful people, but they let them jump on the couch. And here I am trying to teach them manners and try to teach other people's kids manners. And so I said, you cannot let them jump on the couch. They said, oh yeah, they can do that here. I said, no, because you don't understand. They are too young to say to themselves, we can do this here, but we then can't do it at our friend's house. I said, so I'm going to get a call from a parent saying that they were jumping on the couch. So this is not going to fly. So please do not let them jump on the couch anymore. And you can even blame me. You can say, well, I saw this manners lady and she said that we all need to get on board and here are the rules and this is what we need to do. And hopefully they will listen. So get everyone on board with that. Next thing, you need to sound positive. Use positive, not threatening language when it comes to learning manners. Use the words fun, rewarding. I cannot tell you how many people say to me, oh, you're Elise McVeigh, that manners lady? I've been threatening my children for years that they're going to have to go to your class. I even went to a beauty appointment the other day and she said, oh, I took my staff out to lunch and they were a disaster. I threatened that you were going to have to teach them manners. Well, don't make it a threat. You want to make it fun. You want to sound positive. You want to use things like, oh, you're going to get more play dates if you have good manners. You're going to have more friends, more privileges. It'll give you confidence. It'll make you feel more comfortable. So those are things we need to say. All right, number 3, we are going to make it fun. Yay. All right, so this is how I figured out how to make it fun. So I can be funny, and I probably don't look like I can be, but I can be fun and funny. But when it comes to work, I get very serious. But obviously when you're playing with kids, you have to really put yourself out there. So I had a friend down the street who would call and do funny voices and all this. And so I sort of created this character for him. He was a professional actor back in the day, named Professor Mannerd. And so we tested everything out. So I had a live class. I said, okay, come down and do this little skit that we're going to do for like a video newsletter that I was doing, because that's what you did back in the day. And so we did, and it was amazing how the kids, we did this whole demonstration with gifts. They got it right away. And normally it would take me several times saying, no, you just say thank you. Don't say I don't like it, just say thank you. Say thank you. And they weren't. Suddenly, all they just said was, thank you. Like, oh my gosh, this guy worked. So it was very, very exciting. So we have an older Professor Mannerd and a new one, and you can check them out on our YouTube channel. All right, so here's a way that Mrs. McVeigh's manners can help you. So you may not feel like you're a comedian. You may not be a professional actor like Professor Mannerd. Or maybe you're thinking, you know what, it's not really my job to make my child's fun. My job to make my child's life fun, because I sort of feel that way too. It's like, I'm here to raise you and parent you. And yes, I want us to have fun, but I don't have to entertain you 24/7. So you might be thinking, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I don't know how to make manners fun. I'm just too frustrated, whatever. So you're, screaming at your kid because he's chewing with his mouth open, or, he's not looking at someone in the eye. So you don't have to keep on being frustrated. So one way you can let us help you is by sending your child to one of our classes. If you don't live in the Dallas area, that's okay. We have an online video series with 6 different lessons. You could do a Zoom class with friends. You could do a private lesson. So we have all these resources, some paid, but a lot free. So I'm going to tell you about some of them so you can bring these to your home and hopefully, well, actually, I think if you do, I know if you do, your child is going to have better manners. All right, so speaking of a free resource, the Mrs. McVeigh's Magnificent Manners Show YouTube page. So I have 2 YouTube pages. One is, I think, just Elise McVeigh. It has some things that, like news appearances, etc., some acting stuff I've done. But the one you want for the kids is the Mrs. McVeigh's Magnificent Manners Show. It has videos with Professor Mannerd. So this is the new Professor Mannerd, but also Ashton and Dax, my 2 very cute dogs who I've figured out on an app. They can talk and give a manners tip of the day. The kids laugh so hard that sometimes I'm like, okay, now we have to replay it because you didn't hear it. So they really, really like it. And I know kids are on YouTube all the time. So this is something that's a positive for YouTube that your kids are going to like. All right. So do you like teaching your children through books? So I told you I was a journalist. I'm an author. Mrs. McVeigh's Manners loves books. It's one of the ways that we reiterate our lesson for that day. So we read a lot of books, our books, other people's books. So on the screen, you have some of the hard copy books that I read to the kids. They're on Amazon or probably maybe Target.com, Walmart.com, but they're really, really good books. I love them all. They're quality. And then I've written a book starring Professor Manners. And it's just, it's for every single lesson that we have. So we also, if you're interested in any of these, put your email in the chat and just say interested in books. I can help you locate them. We also have other books that we found, ebooks, because I just like those better just because it's just easier to carry to the lessons. I just have an iPad instead of all these books. But anyway, so we have our own ebooks, their ebooks, other people's. It's great. So books is a great way, as you know, to reiterate things to children. All right, next thing, you want to reward them. So these are charts that I created for my kids because I was yelling at them every morning. So having 3 children, small, about the same age, then you're like, can we, at the time is watching TV. We didn't have electronic devices that they can carry around now, but can we watch TV? No, you need to get ready for school. I'm ready. Really? Have you done the following? Have you made your bed? Have you eaten breakfast? I'd go through the whole thing. And so I sort of had these charts everywhere to, I'd have the morning routine on their wall in their room. And then I'd have one near the door before we left, that they would sit there. The 2 older ones and the little one couldn't really talk as much, but they'd say, get out of bed, check, make bed, check. So they would go through the whole thing. You can actually get a dry erase marker or just a regular marker and check it all off. I had to take ours away because my small one, I used to have a white couch and it had marker on it. So we had to get rid of the marker and I had to recover the couch, but that's another story. Anyway, these charts are great. You can make your own. Here's a great way. And I know other people make them if these don't suit you, but I just think that charts are great. You can tie rewards to them. So they're really fun. All right. Next thing, role play. That is number 4. That is a big key to what we do at Mrs. McVeigh's Manners. All right. So an example of this would be, we have a lesson called guest and host. 3 things that you need to remember when you're a guest at someone's house. The first one is you knock on the door, wait for them to answer. And then the host says, hello, please come in. Then the host says, would you like to have a seat? Or they direct you where to go. We're going to my room or here or there, the trampoline, wherever you're going. But second thing. And then the third thing is, would you like something to drink? So we take turns in my classes being guest and host, but you can do this at home. Anytime you're about to go into any situation, act it out. It might sound silly, but I'm telling you, it really, really is effective. Another example, meeting and greeting. So when my children, once again, were little, we'd pull up in front of the house and I'd say, all right, this is, Mrs. or Dr. so-and-so and Mr. or whatever, judge so-and-so, whatever titles they have. I'd make sure that they knew the titles. If the parents had different last names, I'd make that clear. And then I'd say, show me how you're going to meet and greet. And so we always tell kids 3 things: firm handshake, clear and loud enough voice, and good eye contact. And I've also now said, make sure that you're standing up straight and tall with your shoulders back, because we have a lot of slouching going around. It's driving me crazy. So this photo of the little boy and the teacher, this is so great. One of my parents, he went through a manners camp this past summer, and the mom said, I just want to show you, how this paid off, because here he is meeting and greeting his teacher. So I guess she didn't even have to tell him, he just did it. So that was very exciting. So and he ended up getting an award. And she sent that to me too for having such good manners, like written up in the little school newsletter. So that really made me excited. Anyway, so these are different ways of role playing. All right, number 5, eat dinner as a family. So a big key to children's development. I've heard guidance counselors and other experts say this, get your spouse on board, make sure that you know how to correctly use utensil use. There are books on how to do this. You can go to my website. Another way you're not alone is I've created some placemats. If you ever want to use those for utensil use placement, just as a guide, that's something that we do is we always give this out in our classes. So that way, when the classes are over, the child can remember how to set the table. So we're running short on time, so I'm going to make this fast. All right, next thing, try new foods. Find a positive way to do it. Don't make it a battle. The reason that you want to do this is, so I was with someone in a romantic relationship and he would not eat certain foods and he would just sit there at the dinner table when we were at people's houses or whatever. And it just was very embarrassing. So I was a picky eater as a kid. So I just always say you're more comfortable if you are able to eat anything that is served in front of you. So that's really important. All right, 7, incorporate manners into your daily life. So many ways that you can do this. You could practice writing thank you notes, stationery. Do not get the fill in the blanks. So what you can do is when your child is not able to write at all, you write the thank you note in your voice. When they're older and they can sign their name, you can write the thank you note, whatever they want to say. Of course, you're helping them, but whatever they want to say. And then the next stage, when they're able to write, I would just write it out for my sons, and then they would copy it. And one day the younger one's like, you know what? I don't even need you to do that anymore. I got this. I can do this on my own. So that's great. Crafts, you can make your own placemat, contests, especially boys love it, that you race to see who can set the table the fastest, but neatness counts. I used to take my kids to malls and other suburbs. That way we could just get all that bad behavior out, and I would make sure, okay, this is how you have good manners when you go to a store, when you're, walking through the halls, whatever it is. Restaurant, same thing. I would find a place that I knew no one else would go. So I didn't feel so many eyes on me going, oh my gosh, your kid is a nightmare, just in case I ran into someone I knew. So just find places to incorporate it into your daily life. Also, FYI, please do not give your children a device at a restaurant. You want to give them coloring or something else, but not a device, because I have this sick feeling that we're going to walk in restaurants someday and everyone's going to be looking at a screen. We're already sort of doing it. So, all right, next, look for learning opportunities. So always be on the lookout. I had a child who always would give me scenarios of how he thought people were not acting well. So I would say, well, what would you do in that situation? If child says, well, my feelings were hurt. All right, well, how can you do something better next time so you don't do that to someone? Sporting events. I mean, winners, losers, please hold it together till we get in the car. Let's be gracious as we lose and shake hands, and then get to the car and you can be as upset as you want to. But just look for learning opportunities. Out to dinner, traveling, whatever it is, there are always ways. All right, number 9, repetition. So ask your child to set the table any chance they can. Insist that they always say please and thank you. Practice good manners, shaking hands with adults. When child gives you a scenario, as we said, about someone else's actions, make sure that you say, well, that's not good manners. Remember that when you're in that situation. So seek things out that can enhance what you're teaching. All right, last but not least, an outside influence. So who could this person be? An aunt, an uncle, grandparent. I have a friend who did not have any children, and she had a niece named after her. Her first name was Mary Blake. And so her niece was Mary Blake. And so every summer she had Camp Mary Blake, and they would go over manners. And Mary Blake loved it, the little girl. And then she'd go home and show her mom, and her mom would call her sister and say, yeah, I tell her that every day and she doesn't listen to me, but she's listening to you. So I get that a lot. An outside influence will help. How can your school help? Do they have a curriculum that has manners? If not, well, now you can say, well, I know a lady who can help you. We get a lot of educators who go to the replay of these webinars. They're always looking for ideas too. So if you're one of them, let me know. You can put your name in the chat. I'm happy to talk to your school. We can come up with a strategy or whatever it is. All right, so in conclusion, you're going to get relatives on board. You're going to sound positive. You're going to make it fun. You're going to role play, eat dinner as a family, try new foods, incorporate it into daily life, look for learning opportunities, repetition, and an outside influence such as a relative or teacher. All right, so I've given you 10 great tips how to help your child with their manners. If you think you've got it, then great. Please put in place what we've talked about. If you ever want to ask me any questions, please do. You probably have my email, or we can get it to you, whatever it is. You can put something in the chat. If you don't think that you can, well, let me help you. Let me partner with you to help you in your child's manners journey. I can be your new best friend. Set up a complimentary consultation. Just put something in the chat. We're putting things in the chat of a link that you can go on to and set something up. You can throw any issue at me. Believe me, I've seen it, I've heard it, I've experienced it. And then take advantage of our free and some paid resources. So for our webinar participants today, we're offering a discount on the Mrs. McVeigh's Magnificent Manners Show, online video series, group classes, private classes, if you contact us within 24 hours of seeing this. So schedule a chat, email us about whatever you need, but remember, you don't have to do it alone. So please let me help you in any way that I can. So thank you everyone for a great webinar, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and please let us help you. All right, contact me anytime. Take care. Bye.